listening to the Wrestle Havoc Podcast on YouTube, where we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. We talk all that goes on in the realm of WWE and AEW every week. And now, here's your host, the one that will give you a reality check on pro wrestling, Flamin' Ricky DeReyes. This is the Wrestle Havoc Podcast.
What's up, everybody? It is Flamin' Ricky DeReyes, right here on the Wrestle Havoc Podcast, here to review Monday Night Raw from April 10th, 2023, the week after the storm, after the calm, which was Raw from last week, the Raw after WrestleMania. That being the atrocity that was that show. How did this show play out? Well, we got a lot of things to talk about. What are my overall thoughts on this show? Yes, this show was clearly better than last week's show. Last week's show was an atrocity. That show was garbage. It was boring. It did not live up to the standards of what a Raw after WrestleMania should be. The Raw after WrestleMania, you have the crowd just being amped up, all excited, a lot of surprises. The only quote-unquote surprise that we got last week was Matt Riddle returning, attacking the fucking Miz. And really, if you think about it, the first thing that Matt Riddle should have done was attack SIkoa, and that's what he did on Friday on SmackDown. So I don't know why he had him attack the Miz for some reason last week. That made no sense. SmackDown was also clearly the better show as well. You can tell the difference between a Triple H show and a Vince McMahon show. Now, that said, this show was hindered by a lot of problems, and the biggest problem of them all was talent not arriving at the show because I believe there was a lot of talent delay. So this show was changed up around. Originally, we were supposed to be getting The Miz versus Matt Riddle, but we ended up not getting that match. Sami Zayn and Matt Riddle actually didn't arrive in the building, I believe, until the third hour. So that was that as well. But overall, what are my thoughts on this show as a whole? Yes, this was a better show than last week, and clearly Triple H was booking this show with all the talent that he did have. But at the same time, if you really think about it, this show was still relatively boring as well, especially in the middle of the show, man. I don't know, and it's a case with Raw every week. When I watch the show and I take notes with the show, literally there are times where I just do not care about what is going on. I feel like, and I talk about this every week on the Raw review, every time when you watch something on Raw, you honestly feel the sense of, wow, this is not important, why am I watching this? Or you just have the sense of, oh yeah, this is just to kill time because they don't have anything else in plan for the third hour or the second hour. For me, that is the case with Raw. Raw is a boring show at the end of the day. SmackDown is clearly the better show. Dynamite is so much fun to fucking watch, even at this point. Like, a lot of people say AEW lost their momentum, but genuinely, I feel like after last week with the announcement of them going to Wembley Stadium, I feel like they got that momentum right back after the atrocity that was WWE last week with all the Vince McMahon bullshit that was going on. But overall, this was still a very boring show, and I literally wanted to fall asleep for 3 straight hours. Some notes on the show before we go through it. We had Rey Mysterio versus Finn Balor. Cody Rhodes cut a very good promo, basically challenging Brock Lesnar to a match at Backlash, or I should say he called it WrestleMania Backlash, which literally gives me, a sense that, oh yeah, Vince McMahon is back. He went in and changed immediately the name from Backlash back to WrestleMania Backlash. We had the Usos versus Alpha Academy, and we had Kevin Owens versus SIkoa. Trish Stratus also turned heel on the show. That was honestly to be expected. Let's be honest, the tag team match that we saw before the heel turn was not a very good match. The match was boring as hell. The crowd was dead, and really throughout the entirety of this whole show, the crowd was basically dead. But overall, a very boring show. We did get a lot of wrestling on the show, definitely a Triple H special. But again, I wasn't feeling it watching this show, definitely, especially last week. Last week was just an abomination. But before I get on with all this craziness and dumbassery that was Monday Night Raw, make sure to like and subscribe to the Wrestle Havoc Podcast right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the frickin' referee would say, Ring that damn bell for more notifications. We reached over 200 subscribers. I believe we're at 210 right now, which I know that's not a big number, but that is a big accomplishment in my opinion, in my eyes. Hopefully by the end of this year, I'm able to reach 1,000. That is my big goal, to reach 1,000 subscribers on this channel. Hopefully by the end of this year. So keep coming, watching the shows. I definitely enjoy what I'm doing, and hopefully you guys can come back and enjoy these reviews as I give it to you each and every week right here on the Wrestle Havoc Podcast. Also, the Wrestle Havoc Podcast is also available on audio platforms. It is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and Google Podcasts. So if you guys want to listen to the Wrestle Havoc Podcast in audio platforms, it is available on all those listed platforms. The link will be in the description below. But yeah, let's get on with Monday Night Raw, the shitstorm that was this show. Rey Mysterio welcomes us all to Monday Night Raw, and that right up the top of the bat. I know that may seem a little thing in the eyes of a lot of maybe casual fans, but me watching the show every week constantly, man, and this was definitely a Vince McMahon special, man. And I mean, we even saw this when Triple H was running the show. Like almost every week, you know, when a wrestler would open Raw, when they would open the show, the first line was, "Welcome to Monday Night Raw." To me, that is the most repetitive shit I've ever seen, man. It's the cringy shit ever. I do not like it when they do that, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. You guys may think differently, but to me, every week when they do that, it gets annoying. You know, it's like same way, like, I'm gonna be honest, man, when Cody Rhodes, like, opens the promo and saying, "So what do you want to talk about?" Every time when he keeps doing that, it kind of gets a little too repetitive. And I like Cody Rhodes. I think he's fucking awesome. But again, you know, I just don't like when wrestlers tend to repeat themselves every week when they open their promos, like when they say a specific catchphrase. Except for Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns is different, okay? Because Roman Reigns is fucking awesome. But still. So he talks about how he has to pour his heart out, and it's been a crazy year for him. He's had a lot of ups and a lot of downs. Last week should have been a dream come true going into the WWE Hall of Fame. And on top of that, competing in the biggest WrestleMania of all time. But instead, he faced off with his own son. And he really, he wanted this to be different. He really did. But then what happens? Dominic comes out, and then Dominic tells Rey to keep his name out of his mouth. After that, he talks about how he is sick and tired of hearing everything what he wants. This is what he does. He makes things about himself. He never cared about him. That is why he is better off with his real family, the Judgment Day. And then Rey then asks if the Judgment Day are his actual real family. And he talks about how those selfish idiots are using him. Dom says that they are not the ones using him. He is using him. He was the one that used him. He is the selfish one. He would have beaten him at Mania if Bad Bunny didn't stick his nose into his business. And he is using him like he used him. Or I should say, he is using Bad Bunny the way he used Dominic. That's the words of Dominic. He talks about what happened last week, and he shows after last week what happened when Damian Priest basically planted Bad Bunny through the table. And Dominic then says, Bad Bunny makes a lot of good songs. When he put him through the table, that was music to his ears. He hopes now he sticks his nose out of Judgment Day's business. And Rey then says he spoke to Bad Bunny last night, and he says he will be back, and he and the rest of Judgment Day are going to regret putting his hands on him. And Dominic says, more empty words from a deadbeat dad. And again, I say this every week, Dominic Mysterio is a fucking heat magnet. The loud boos, man. Every time when this man comes out, Jesus Christ, the boos are so fucking loud. After that, talks about how instead of worrying about Judgment Day, Rey says he talks a big game, but he's gonna man up and take care of things on his own. He definitely seems like a lost cause now. So why doesn't he step into this ring and have a WrestleMania rematch? Those were the words by Rey Mysterio, right here in Seattle. Dominic then goes, whoa, 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 whoa. He doesn't want to fight his own father, but he knows he will. And then Finn Balor comes out, which then leads us to Finn Balor versus Rey Mysterio. Overall thoughts on this segment, not a bad segment to open up the show. Anything involving Dominic or, Judgment Day or maybe, Rey Mysterio, definitely gets a praise by me. I genuinely believe that one of the best things on WWE television now, especially in this current state, is definitely Judgment Day. Judgment Day has definitely grown on me, trust me. And that has a large play to do with Triple H. Triple H definitely had a lot to do with that. Not Vince McMahon. You may say, oh, but Vince McMahon, maybe created the group or something like that when he was still running creative. But let's be honest with ourselves. Judgment Day would have been dead on arrival after month 2. Let's be real with ourselves. When Triple H took over creative, Judgment Day, it was kind of like a new life was kind of breathed into Judgment Day, and Judgment Day was taken more seriously. Now with Vince McMahon back, I'm very much worried about that, but we're still fine now. We're still fine now, but again, we're just gonna have to wait and see what happens. But overall thoughts on this match between Finn Balor and Rey Mysterio? Not a bad match between both men. Definitely a good match overall. Finn is in control over Rey, but then Rey tries to fight back. We get repeated rights by Rey Mysterio, but then we get a kick by Finn Balor. Then Finn goes for the sunset flip, but then Rey counters with a drop kick. Rey Mysterio then goes for the head scissors, but then Finn drives Rey Mysterio down to the mat. We then get a cover and a near fall, but then we get a kick by Finn Balor. Balor then goes for repeated rights on Rey, but then he follows up with a back elbow. After that, we get a side headlock. And then Rey goes for repeated elbow strikes, but then Finn regains control. Balor then drives his knee on Rey onto the middle rope, but then we get repeated shots on the back of Rey Mysterio. Then we get a bunch of back elbows once again by Rey. Rey then goes for a Hurricane Rana, taking Balor to the outside. Rey then goes for a baseball slide, and then he goes for the sliding splash onto the outside, which looked fucking sick, man. I love when Rey Mysterio does that all the time. Once we're back from commercial break, Balor regains control. Rey goes for a bulldog on Finn, but then he goes for repeated rights. After that, Balor is in the corner. Rey is on the apron, and then he goes to the top. He hits the seated senton after that, and then he hits the crossbody, and then we get a cover and a near fall. Then we get a kick to the midsection by Balor on Rey, and then we get a drop kick on the knee of Balor, taking him to the middle rope. After that, Rey sets up the 619, but then Balor proceeds to take him out. Balor then goes for the shotgun dropkick into the corner. He goes to the top, but then Rey comes in. He headbutts Balor after that, but then we get a Hurricane Rana by Rey off the top. And then we get a cover by Rey into near fall. Then we get a dropkick to the back of Balor, which leads Balor to go to the middle rope. And then Rey actually finally succeeds in hitting the 619. We get a cover. Actually, no, he doesn't hit the 619. Well, he does hit the 619, but he doesn't go for the cover yet. Rey goes to the top, but then we get a frog splash, but then Balor gets the knees up. And then after that, we get a cover by Balor and a near fall. Rey then gets dropped face first onto the turnbuckle, but then Balor regains control, driving Rey's head into the corner. Dominic then has something in his hand, and then he tries to hit him with the steel chain, but then both men get taken to the outside. Rey then hits the suicide dive on both Balor and Dominic, and then Rey tries to take Balor back into the ring, but then Balor distracts the referee, which then leads to Dominic to hit him with the steel chain. Balor then goes to the top and hits the coup de grace. And after that, we get a cover, and Finn Balor gets the win over Dominic's quote-unquote deadbeat dad, Rey Mysterio. Overall thoughts on this match, not a bad match whatsoever. Of course, this is progressing the story, because we all know, after WrestleMania, after Rey beat Dominic, which I honestly thought it was going to be the other way around. I thought Dominic was actually going to get the win over Rey. It looks like after that WrestleMania match, that was a tremendous match overall. It looks like we're clearly going to see the progression of this story, and we definitely saw that. My best bet is that since Backlash is headed to Puerto Rico, honestly, I definitely see Bad Bunny getting involved in some way, shape, or form in a match, because we all know how good Bad Bunny is capable of in the wrestling ring. He is very good whatsoever. If you guys haven't checked out his performance at WrestleMania 2 years ago, I was there live. I marked the fuck out for Bad Bunny. He was really good, and he's going to be doing very well. We're just going to have to wait and see what they do with him later on, but overall, not a bad match between both Rey and Finn Balor. We then get a video package of Brock Lesnar attacking Cody Rhodes last week. And then Becky Lynch, we get a backstage interview with her. And she talks about how Lita got attacked, because if you guys do not know, before the show even started, Lita got attacked by a mysterious woman. And then Becky then says, Lita is in a local medical facility. Just say the fucking hospital. Jesus Christ. If there's any more indication that Vince McMahon is back, just hear the words local medical facility. You know Vince McMahon is back. She will slap the head off whoever did this to her. And then Trish Stratus comes in and says she will be her partner. Trish Stratus looks a little sketchy. After that, we got Trish Stratus we got Trish Stratus and Becky Lynch versus Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez for the Women's Tag Team Championships. I'm going to be 100% honest. I like all four. I love Trish Stratus. I think she's a legend. I like Becky Lynch. She's great. Liv Morgan, she's great as well. Same as Raquel Rodriguez, even though I think she's kind of bland right now when it comes to her character. Literally, she comes out like smiling all the fucking time like it's the most cringiest shit ever. With all due respect. I don't mean that in a personal way. I mean that with the utmost respect. Honestly, this match sucked ass. This match was dog shit. You know, I don't want to say that the crowd had a large portion to do with that, but the crowd was dead throughout this whole fucking match. And if you really think about it, if this match was like an amazing tag team match and then the heel turn happened after that, I would have been like, wow, that was really impactful. But really, Trish's heel turn really amounted to nothing in my opinion because the match itself was just not that good. The match was just slow-paced. I just didn't really enjoy what I saw, and the crowd was just flat out dead for this whole thing. Becky pushes Raquel Rodriguez. She's pissed off. She thinks Raquel and Liv did it, but Raquel is saying, like, I didn't do shit. Raquel then drives her into the corner. She picks up Becky, but then we get a kick by Becky, and then Becky goes for a slap. Raquel then catches her, and she drives her into the corner, but then Liv Morgan makes the tag. We then get a hip attack into the corner by Liv, but then we get a double team by Raquel and Liv Morgan. Liv then goes for the enziguri, but then we get a cover and a near fall. And then Becky goes for the inside cradle, and then after that, Liv goes for the inside cradle. Liv then goes for the sweep, but then Becky escapes and hits a kick. Liv then regains control, and then she hits a drop kick on her back. And then after that, she goes for the double stomp, but then we get a cover and a near fall. Trish Stratus then makes the tag. She takes down Liv, but then we get a cover and a near fall. We then get a back elbow by Liv. After that, Liv goes to the top, but then Trish ends up going for the head scissors. At this point, Becky is on the top, but then she goes for the leg drop. And then once we're back from commercial break, Trish is in control over Liv Morgan. Liv then tries to fight back, but then both women take each other down face first. At this point, the hot tag is made. After the hot tag was made, we get repeated clotheslines by Raquel Rodriguez. And then she picks up Becky Lynch and hits the fall-away slam after that. And then after that, she hits back with a corkscrew elbow. We then get a cover and a near fall, but then Becky goes for the head scissors. Becky then is on the apron, but then she goes to the top, and then she hits a drop kick on Raquel. We then get a cover by Becky and a near fall. At this point, Raquel is on the apron, but then she goes to the top. She picks up Becky, but then Becky manages to fight back, but then both women fight it out. Then Trish makes the tag. Both women then after that go to the middle rope. After that, Trish and Raquel Trish and Becky try to suplex them, but then Becky gets taken down. Then she manages to hit the head scissors and finally does. And then after that, we get a cover by Trish and a near fall. Becky then makes the tag, but then Raquel is on the apron on the middle rope. Later on, Becky continues on to fight Raquel Rodriguez. Liv tags in. She goes for a second backbreaker, but then Liv goes for the tornado DDT. We get a cover and a near fall, and then she goes for a second cover and then the third cover. And then we get a roll-up by Liv and a near fall, but then Liv gets taken face first onto the turnbuckle. At that point, the tag is made, but then both Trish and Becky are on the top. And then both women try to hit the double suplex, or the double superplex, I should say. But then Raquel comes in and goes for the Tower of Doom spot. After that, we get a roll-up by Liv on Becky, but then we get a near fall. Both women fight it out, but then Liv gets dragged into the corner. After that, later on in the match, Becky applies the disarmer, but then Raquel comes in and hits a boot. Trish then hits the Stratus faction, but then Liv goes for the double knees, but then Becky counters the Oblivion attempt by Liv. Becky hits the manhandle slam. We get a cover and a near fall when Raquel Rodriguez drags Becky to the outside. Trish then makes the tag, so it's all Trish at this point. Becky then takes out Raquel, but then Trish goes for the chick kick, but then Liv counters with the roll-up, and we get a cover, and Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan end up winning the tag team championships. And that was a shock. But then what happens is after the match, and you can definitely tell, like throughout the entirety of the match, you definitely saw there was some bit of tension and some bit of, and the commentators even mentioned it, there was like a little bit of miscommunication between both Becky and Trish. But after the match, Becky holds up the hand of Trish, basically putting her over. And then both hug it out. But then after that, it looks like Becky's about to leave the ring. But then what happens? Trish, from behind, attacks Becky. And then she hits the chick kick. And it's official. Trish Stratus was the one that definitely attacked Lita. And Trish turns heel over Becky Lynch. What are my overall thoughts on this? This was definitely expected. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh my God, this was the best thing ever, or this was like shocking. Because it wasn't really shocking. The match itself sucked. Like, I wasn't a fan of the match whatsoever. I did not care what the hell was going on. But my question about this heel turn is, what's special about Trish Stratus turning heel? What is the story behind it? And why do we have to have somebody, when it comes to a Hall of Famer like Trish, turning heel, instead of building up somebody new, in my opinion? Like, the women's division right now in WWE is so weak. And I don't mean that as disrespect. It's just the truth. And it's clearly seen in the booking, and it's clearly seen in the creative direction. The direction of the women's division, I feel like, is completely... There's no direction whatsoever when it comes to it. And I feel like Trish's heel turn was kind of in desperation. That's just my opinion, at least. I like Trish Stratus. But do I think this heel turn is going to be successful? No. And honestly, like, Trish Stratus is not even going to be on Raw every week. I may be wrong. But again, like, what is the point of Trish Stratus turning heel? Like, of all people, why would you have Trish Stratus turn heel? Somebody that's not even, like, on the roster 24/7, 365. That is my opinion. But, like, I don't want to hear people even say, like, oh, but they did it with Edge. But, like, Edge, Edge was going to be wrestling. And look, Trish is wrestling. But, again, like, what's the direction behind this? Why did they have Trish Stratus turn heel? I didn't really understand. But it wasn't really shocking. Like, even before the match even happened, when they showed Lita getting attacked, just by the facial expression of Trish Stratus, you already knew she was going to be turning heel, so it wasn't really that special, and everybody on social media even knew it. But again, I'm not really interested in this. I just don't know what's the point of this. The same thing I feel about the Outcasts in AEW. Like, let's be honest. When the Outcasts first started to become a thing in AEW, they were like, okay, there's going to be some sort of direction. But let's be honest right now. Are you watching AEW because of the Outcasts? No. Like, the Outcasts is like one of the things that I don't care about in AEW. And that's a damn shame, because I like Saraya, I like Toni Storm, and I like Ruby Soho. And I may be wrong maybe in the next couple of months. But again, like, that is one of the things that I'm just, like, not really invested in. And this right here is not something that I'm invested in as well. Like, both women's divisions in both WWE and AEW definitely have their problems. We get a backstage interview with the wise man of the bloodline, Paul Heyman. He's asked about Brock Lesnar, and he provides some insight. But then Paul wants to ask another question. He doesn't see Kevin Owens as just a problem. He has a problem. Sami Zayn is not here tonight. Flight delays. Matt Riddle isn't here. Flight delays. Sami Zayn and Matt Riddle were at an airport, and he basically mocks them, saying, hey, let's just get the later flight so we can avoid the bloodline, basically accusing them of that. They're smart not to mess with SIkoa, the enforcer. And after that, he talks about how they come here tonight, or I should say Kevin Owens comes here tonight with 0 allies and 1 leg. And he talks about how, he's going to get an ass-kicking contest by the badass Samoan. And we're going to be talking about the problem solver. He talks about how Solo is here. He is here. The Usos are here. And what kind of people take advantage of KO in a vulnerable state. Talks about how what kind of people are so despicable, and he ends his promo saying, we the ones, we the ones. Great promo overall by Paul Heyman. After that, we get a backstage interview with Trish Stratus after turning heel. She is asked, why did she attack Becky Lynch, but then Trish does not even answer, and she just leaves. After that, we get Damage Control backstage. Dakota and Io Sky are waiting for Bayley, who is in Adam Pearce's office, and she talks about the WWE draft. Bayley talks about how she has a chance to get a title opportunity. And that she talks about how there's going to be a triple threat match for the number 1 contendership of the Raw Women's title. And Io and Dakota get pissed, and they basically ask themselves, what about us? So there's some sort of tension going on with Damage Control. I think it's pretty safe to say that we're not going to be talking about Damage Control in the next couple of months. And I hate to be the one that says this, but I genuinely feel that Damage Control was a failed experiment. I don't know, man. It's just not. thing about it, Damage Control is just like there's just like nothing of importance. Like you would see their singles matches and they would lose clean in like singles matches. Like why would you care? Like if you want to have a legit women's faction, like around the lengths of the bloodline, maybe to like bloodline status, you need to like be taken seriously. And I honestly believe that Damage Control isn't really being taken that all seriously. I'm not really invested in what they're doing, and I just think there's no direction. So honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Damage Control is no longer going to be a group. After that, we get Bobby Lashley versus Bronson Reed. Big men, big meaty men fighting off meat. I think that's the quote. I probably misquoted that, but it's a common term, especially in WWE. WWE loves their big man matches. It's like, no, I'm kidding. What are my thoughts on Bobby Lashley versus Bronson Reed? It wasn't a bad match. Definitely, I feel like this is a feud that they're going to be continuing. I like what they're doing with Bronson Reed, but like the running thing that everybody talks about when it comes to Bronson Reed is that Bronson Reed always gets zero reaction. And that is very well true. That is very much true. Like I like the way that Bronson Reed is being booked. Don't get me wrong. I think he is being booked fabulously. I don't want to say I'm going to put him on par with the way that Solo SIkoa is being booked, because Solo SIkoa is definitely being booked for something definitely really special, and Solo SIkoa is going to be a star. I'm not saying that Bronson Reed is going to be a star, but he should be. But again, every time when Bronson Reed comes out, man, this man gets zero reaction whatsoever. Just zero reaction. Like the guy, and it's not even on him. It's not even on him. It's just like the crowd is just dead in every one of his matches. But we get Bobby Lashley versus Bronson Reed. Not a bad match overall. The match starts. Both lock up. We get a back elbow by Bobby Lashley. After that, Bronson Reed fights back. He hits a headbutt and hits a right hand on Bobby Lashley, but then Bobby Lashley gets sent into the corner. He then takes out Bronson Reed, but then he flatlands Reed face first onto the mat. We then get a kick by Lashley, but then Reed picks up Lashley and drops him down to the top. After that, Lashley is on the apron, but then both men exchange shots. Then we get a kick by Reed, but then we get a right elbow by Bronson Reed, taking Lashley to the outside. And then he drives his elbow on Bobby Lashley. At this point, Reed is back into the ring. Once we're back from break, Lashley runs into a boot by Bronson Reed, but then we get repeated rights by Reed on Lashley. Bronson Reed then sends Lashley into the corner, but then Lashley escapes and Reed runs into the corner, but then we get a splash by Lashley into the corner. Then he spears through Reed into the corner, but then Bronson Reed counters with a neck breaker, but then Lashley hits a neck breaker of his own. He then tries to pick him up and hits a suplex. After that, he tries to apply the hurt lock, but then Lashley has trouble applying that hurt lock. After that, Bronson throws his own body on top of Bobby Lashley, and then we get a cover into near fall. Bronson Reed then goes to the top, but then Lashley comes in. He tries to throw Lashley, but then Bronson Reed pokes his eye. After that, he splashes Lashley on the mat. He picks up Lashley, and then he counters the spear. After that, Reed runs into a spine buster, but then Lashley applies the hurt lock, but then Reed throws Lashley to the outside. After that, Lashley clotheslines Reed, but then Lashley picks up Reed, but then Reed escapes and sends Lashley to the ring post. At that point, both men were on the outside for so long that they ended up getting counted out. After that, after the match, both men brawl. The referees come in, but then Lashley comes back, but then a brawl continues, but then both men get separated. So this looks like the next big Bobby Lashley program is going to be against Bronson Reed. I'll be behind it, but again, I don't have my hopes up for this whatsoever. But overall, not a bad match. After that, we get a Cody Rhodes segment. Of course, this was a week after he basically got annihilated by Brock Lesnar. We got a bunch of Cody chants by the crowd, and the first thing he says was, "So, Seattle, what do you want to talk about?" Typically, that is a bit of a redundant question. But then when he first came back, he was talking about Seth Rollins. Then he tore his pec, and then he talked about the Rumble. And then he talked about WrestleMania and finishing the story. But after last week, he feels cloudy. At WrestleMania 39, under the brightest lights in the main event, he lost. He lost to the Tribal Chief, our champion, Roman Reigns. And there's polarizing moments in WWE. And talk about how we pity on him. And he lost dead in the center. And for the lengths that Roman would be willing to go, he lost, and he is sorry. He heard two things after that match, and it was from his friend Matt. Now, everybody was arguing, who was this friend Matt? Was it either Matt Cardona or Matt Jackson? We do not know. But I like how he mentioned that. And talks about how being in the main event at this point, do wins and losses even matter? What is the point of stealing the show? He talks about how wins and losses mattering, and the other thing he heard that might bother him, and Mr. Heyman said it. He said if every, challenging for the championship, he's got to earn it. Tonight, his whole career and his whole life, earn it, he is it. That was a line by Cody Rhodes. And now, that unfinished tale, he has a whole new wrinkle to it. Brock Lesnar. You want to know what's more embarrassing, laying in the ring in front of 80,000 people? What is worse is waking up the next day, you offer a partnership with the Beast, and he chose destruction. Why did Lesnar do what he did? Lesnar was unhappy with his spot at WrestleMania, an event that is synonymous with the Beast. His theory is Lesnar is uncertain about him, about the hype about him. The change he brought to WWE, change would affect him. Why would he wait to get the drop on him until his back was turned? But what if you are Brock Lesnar? Why the hell would it be uncertain? When Brock looks in the mirror, he is an NCAA, WWE, and UFC champion. He is a Hall of Famer in both worlds. When he was the rookie, he saw The Rock as a victim. He looks at a victim of everybody, and he now looks at him, and he will be honest. Are you scared of Brock Lesnar? Yes. Yes, he is. He'd be crazy not to be scared of Brock Lesnar, but he still wants to fight Brock Lesnar. So he's so scared of Brock. What happens to him last week when he wants to make sure when Lesnar looks in the mirror, he doesn't see a predator, he sees prey. He sees a victim, his victim. So it can be anywhere, anytime, any place. But he knows Brock isn't here in Seattle. So Brock, what do you say? Face to face, eye to eye, Cody Rhodes versus Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania Backlash. Yes, he said those exact words, WrestleMania Backlash. Overall thoughts on this promo. Not a bad promo by Cody Rhodes. Now, the fandom and the community is mixed when it comes to this feud, and honestly, I can't really blame all of you guys. There's some people that like this feud and some people that don't like this feud. I'm still in the camp that WWE should have put the belt on Cody. And if you really want Cody to face that adversity as the champion, the first major feud could have easily been Brock Lesnar. You could have still done that. But overall, what are my thoughts on Brock versus Cody? We didn't really get a legit explanation as to why Brock Lesnar attacked Cody. And we had Wade Barrett say, oh, yeah, it's because of the fact of his match placement at WrestleMania, which I thought was a stupid-ass statement, in my opinion. But overall, am I intrigued by this match? Yes, I am. But am I excited about this match? No, I'm not. Like, there's a difference between being excited and just being intrigued, in my opinion. I genuinely believe, like, it's not that the match is going to be bad. I just feel like I just don't give a shit. Like, I just don't care. Cody versus Brock is not going to be a bad match. It really isn't. They're definitely doing the Cody Rhodes redemption. It's not like Cody Rhodes is buried. And if anybody tells you Cody Rhodes is buried, they're lying straight to your face. They're doing definitely the Cody Rhodes redemption arc. I even heard some people say that they're going to be doing the John Cena thing from 2012, where John Cena constantly lost. And then, of course, he gains his redemption back at WrestleMania 29 against The Rock in a match that basically was completely predictable. I always talk about how there's good predictability and bad predictability. The second match between John Cena and The Rock was a definition of bad predictability. But again, this will probably do more for Cody than Brock, honestly. But again, I'm not really convinced. Like, I'm not really as excited for this match as I should be. But that is just my thoughts on it. I think it will be a good match, though. After that, we get the Usos versus Alpha Academy. I'm not going to really go through this match real quick. Jay and Otis start. Both lock up. We get a waist lock by Jay on Otis. Otis then escapes it, but then Otis does his poses because Otis, of course, is doing the whole Maximum Male Model shit. After that, we get a sunset flip by Jay, but then Otis is still up. Otis then goes to the ropes, but then he shakes and Jay Uso escapes. After that, we get a double team by Alpha Academy. Jimmy then tags in. We get a right hand by Jimmy, and then we get a chop by Jimmy. Chad Gable then fights back, and then Jimmy goes for an uppercut. Gable then goes for the armbar, but then Gable goes to the top. He drops down on Jimmy, and then we get a cover by Gable and a near fall. Gable then hits repeated rights on Jimmy, but then Jimmy escapes into the corner. He then slaps around Jimmy, but then we get a couple of right elbows by Gable. We get a backbreaker by Jay, but then he goes for the double sledge, that being Jay. At this point, Jey Uso is the legal man. Once we're back, we get a double super kick, actually, on Otis. Once we're back from break, Jimmy is in control over Chad Gable. Then he goes for the boot on Gable, but then Gable goes for an exploder suplex. And then at this point, the hot tag is made. Otis then goes after Jimmy and Jay. After that, we get a knee on Jimmy, and then we get a knee on Jay. Runs it through both Jimmy and Jay. Later on, we get a splash by Otis on Jimmy into the corner. Otis then does the worm. After that, he hits the elbow drop on Jimmy, but then Gable goes to the top, but then Jimmy is up on his shoulders. Gable then drives his elbows on Jimmy, but then we get a cover into near fall when Jay makes the save. And then Otis gets taken to the outside, but then Jay goes for the suicide dive. Otis then catches him, but then Jimmy hits the suicide dive, and then they go for the double super kick on Otis. Gable then hits the moonsault, but then once we're back in the ring, he hits the flying headbutt. We get a cover on Jimmy and a near fall. Gable goes for the waist lock, but then Gable blocks a super kick attempt by Jimmy, but then Gable applies, after that, a headlock. I forgot what he applied. I literally fucked up my notes right here. Jay goes for the tag, but then Jay saves Jimmy from the rolling German. After that, we got a double super kick followed by the 1D, and we get a cover, and the Usos get the win. What are my thoughts on Alpha Academy? Alpha Academy is pretty entertaining, and Otis is pretty entertaining, but the Usos wrestling the Alpha Academy, I mean, like, how many times we've seen that match? We've seen this match so many different times, so what is special about that, honestly? Io Sky versus Mia Yim versus Piper Niven. We got a triple threat match for the number one contendership for the Raw Women's title. This match wasn't really that special, to be quite honest with you, because you already knew who the hell was going to win this match anyway. If you really think about it, this match was already predictable. Io Sky ends up getting the win. Do you honestly think Mia Yim or Piper Niven is going to go after the Raw Women's title? No, you don't. But Mia goes after Piper. We get a sunset flip by Michin. We get a kick by Mia Yim, but then Piper goes, picks her up with a drop kick off the top. We get an arm drag by Mia Yim, but then Mia drops Io face down first to the mat. We get a couple of chops by Mia Yim, but then we get a suicide dive by Mia Yim. Io Sky then goes for a springboard moonsault onto the outside. Once we're back from break, Piper Niven then slams Mia Yim. And then Io goes for a sleeper on Piper, but then Piper drops her down on top of Mia Yim. After that, Piper goes for the double running crossbody. We get a cover into near fall. At this point, Io is on the top, but then Io applies a submission on Piper Niven on the ropes. Mia goes for the dropkick, but then she drops down Io Sky. Io then gets taken to the top, but then she hits the Hurricane Rana. Io is on the apron, but then she hits a right on Piper Niven. And then she goes for the shotgun dropkick, and then we get a cover into near fall when Io hits a boot. And then we get a kick to the chest of Io by Michin. After that, she goes for the spin kick, and then she goes for the dragon suplex, but then she sends Io into the corner, but then lands into a Uranage by Piper Niven. We get a cover by Mia into near fall. Mia then goes for the code red, and then after that, we get a kick by Mia, but then we get a cover into near fall when Io hits a beautiful moonsault, and we get a cover, and Io Sky gets the win, and she is the number one contender for the Raw Women's title. Overall thoughts on this match, they're definitely building up to something regarding Damage Control, because they know Damage Control was a failed experiment, and it looks like they're going to be teasing a split, because let's be honest, Io Sky is better off being solo than she is in a trio's capacity, in my opinion. She is so much better off in solo, and you'll get banger matches out of Io Shirai. So they're definitely building towards something and building to some sort of tension regarding Damage Control. Honestly, I'm 100% here for it. We got our main event. We got Kevin Owens versus Solo SIkoa. Overall thoughts, not a bad main event. I mean, this is like the third time we've seen this match. But it was not bad. Both men fight it out. We get a kick by Solo. KO goes for repeated rights, but then we get a kick to the knee of Kevin Owens. After that, we get a couple of right hands by Kevin Owens, but then Solo regains control. Once again, he stomps on the knee of Kevin Owens, but then we get a headbutt by Solo SIkoa. After that, Kevin Owens runs into a chop by Solo, but then Solo takes KO to the outside. And then KO takes out Jay, who was not interfering, but he was on the outside. Solo then goes after Kevin Owens, but then KO sends Solo to the steel steps. KO then takes Solo back into the ring, and then he hits the senton. We then get a cover and a near fall. He then tries to pick up Solo, but then Solo goes for a Uranage attempt, but then Solo hits the kick on his knee. And then he goes for the running hip attack into the corner. Once we're back from break, Solo is in control. And then KO goes for the boot on SIkoa, but then Solo drives his knee down to the mat. After that, Solo picks up KO, and then he elbows SIkoa, but then Kevin Owens hits the DDT. Both men exchange shots, but then Solo runs into a boot. Solo then runs into the corner, but then we get a super kick by Kevin Owens. He then sets up the cannonball, but then his leg gives out. After that, Solo goes for the super kick, and then we get a cover and a near fall. Solo then takes Kevin Owens up, but then he hits a right hand. Then he goes to the second rope, but then Kevin Owens fights off SIkoa. We get an elbow by Kevin Owens after that. And then Owens goes for the frog splash. We get a cover and a near fall. Meanwhile, Kevin Owens is selling his knee. He tries to hit the stunner, but then he gets caught in a Samoan drop by SIkoa. After that, Solo goes to the top, but then Kevin Owens runs the ropes, which makes Solo have a rough landing on the top. After that, we get a kick by Kevin Owens, followed by a right hand. He then goes to the top. KO goes for repeated rights, followed by an elbow, but then both men exchange shots on the top. We get repeated headbutts by KO, but then we get a headbutt by Solo. And then Kevin Owens drops Solo down to the mat, but then Kevin Owens goes to the top, but then Jimmy interferes when the referee is distracted. Then we get a super kick on Jay by Kevin Owens. KO goes to the top, and then he goes for the Swanton Bomb, but then we get a cover by KO and a near fall. Then we get a kick by Solo, but then Kevin Owens goes for the pump-up powerbomb. And then he sets up the stunner, but then Solo hits the super kick. Then Solo hits the Samoan spike, and SIkoa ends up winning the match after covering Kevin Owens. After the match, the Usos stomp after Kevin Owens, but then Sammy and Matt Riddle run to the ring. After that, a brawl breaks loose. They then go into the ring. They all gang up on Solo, but then they both clothesline Solo to the outside. And then we got a knee by Riddle on Jay. Sammy goes for the exploder into the corner, and then he sets up the haluva kick, but then Jimmy comes in. Kevin Owens hits the stunner, but then Sammy misses the haluva kick when Solo makes the save on Jay. And the babyfaces stand tall, which closes the show. Overall thoughts on this match. Not a bad match between Solo and Kevin Owens. This is like the third time we've seen this match, but overall, again, this whole story with the bloodline and Kevin Owens and Sammy is still not over. Even if Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn won those titles, I definitely see them building towards a rematch for the tag team titles. And when it comes to Matt Riddle's case, we're definitely going to be seeing a one-on-one match between both Matt Riddle and SIkoa, considering the fact if you play into continuity, SIkoa was the one that, in kayfabe, of course, we all know the real reason behind Matt Riddle not being on television, but the kayfabe reason was because of the fact that Solo took out Matt Riddle. So it makes total sense for Matt Riddle to go after SIkoa, especially this past Friday on SmackDown. So they're definitely building towards a match maybe at Backlash, and most likely a rematch at the Backlash pay-per-view when it comes to the tag team titles. But again, the larger portion of the story is not really with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. It really plays into a part of Jey Uso, because if you watch the Friday show, they definitely were planting the seeds when it came to Jey Uso, because it looks like Jey Uso, in a way, is going to be technically in the same position that Sami Zayn was when he was a part of the Bloodline. So they're definitely building towards something big for the next couple of months. But that is something to keep an eye out. But overall thoughts on this Raw show. Raw, even though it was a better show than last week, and this was clearly a Triple H show with maybe minor changes by Vince McMahon, it was still a relatively boring show. There was a lot of stuff, in my opinion, that I just did not care about and didn't make sense. And honestly, I'm just not really that intrigued when it comes to Raw. It's probably the worst wrestling show of the week, in my opinion. But overall, that was my Raw review from April 10th, 2023. Please like, subscribe, comment down below, push that bell for notifications, and be on the lookout for more videos right here on the Wrestle Havoc podcast, right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the Squared Circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the freaking referee would say, ring, ring, ring that damn bell for more notifications. And as always, it is Flamin' Ricky DeRays, signing out. See you guys later.